Hello and welcome to Health Matters on Channels Television. I am Mary Alale Yusuf. We are so glad you could join us this day, this wonderful day. Malaria is caused by a parasite called Plasmodium. This parasite is spread to human beings by the bite of the Anopheles mosquito, which usually strikes from dusk to dawn. The most recent World Health Organization estimates released in December 2014 suggest that there were approximately 108 million cases of malaria worldwide in 2013, resulting in about 584,000 deaths. Most malaria deaths occur in sub-Saharan Africa among children under the age of 5. In spite of how bleak this looks, these figures represent a drop in mortality rates by about 47% worldwide and about 58% in Africa since 2000. Joining us on the show today to discuss the issues surrounding malaria is Dr. Ayodeji Odunsi, a public health specialist with the Mainland Hospital, Yaba, in Lagos. You're welcome to the show, Dr. Odunsi.
Thank you very much.
Now, let's first break down this malaria. People just say someone had malaria, but I understand that there are several strains of the parasite. Can you take us through some of those, the common ones?
Yes, the commonest of all the parasites is the one called malaria, Plasmodium falciparum.
I suppose that's the one we have here.
That's the one we have here. It accounts for about 70% of most malaria parasite infections. Then we also have the Plasmodium vivax. We have the Plasmodium ovale, and we have Plasmodium malaria, and then finally the Plasmodium knowlesi.
What makes up the remaining 30% of malaria, and do we have that in Nigeria?
The Plasmodium vivax actually takes another 20%, while the rest of them, the remaining 3, takes about the outstanding 10%. But most of these, the other parasite, the commonest that we have here is the Plasmodium falciparum. But we have Plasmodium knowlesi in places like Southeast Asia.
Okay.
which is predominant.
Okay. Oh, predominant there.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come to that later. But we talk about eradicating malaria. I think many Nigerians have lost hope that malaria can actually be eradicated. We've had this thing for decades amongst us. Can malaria be eradicated?
Sure, malaria can be eradicated in this part of the world, but it has to take a lot of commitment from you and I. First, because even when we
when you say you and I, you have brought it to the level of individual responsibility.
Yes, because why I say that is because when we talk about hygiene, government is not going to be responsible for our personal hygiene. And one of the ways in which malaria vectors are being grown is stagnant waters. If you have stagnant waters around your place, whether through the gutter or bowls littering everywhere and rainwater.
I'm going to stop you for a minute there. You will go to other things which individual responsibilities, but let's stay on the stagnant water for a while. Okay. We have a lot of rainforests. We have leaves.
We are blessed with it.
Now, when it rains, some of this water is preserved, or should I say, is contained in some of these natural reservoirs.
Yeah.
Leaves, flowers.
Yes.
So we can't entirely do away with stagnant water, can we?
We can. When we say stagnant water, we're not talking about the ones that are conserved on the leaves. They are so minute in quantity compared to what we're talking about. We're looking at stagnant gutters that are not draining very well, and they have been there for so long. It is in those kind of stagnant waters that you see the parasite growing. But when you talk about the little ones in the leaves, after the rainfall, how much water can a leaf hold?
Okay.
And
now, 2 things before we still go to the other individual responsibilities.
Okay.
We read that malaria is more prevalent in thick rainforests, places where there's thick rainforests. That's why I made the connection. So you're saying then that having a lot of forestation does not mean you must have a lot of malaria.
Having a lot of forestation, well, I will link the two together, okay? Because malaria parasite needs a warm environment to grow,
Okay.
and they need stagnant water as well. But one of the major problems we have here is that despite the fact that we have the rainforest, we also have very good sunshine. So the bit that is being retained in the leaves in no time gets dried up. But when you look at the drainage, most drainage are stagnant. They are not really
so
running.
No excuses that we have thick rainforest. No more excuses in
really,
that area.
Not really. Because even in the thick rainforest, most of the water is soaked up by the soil.
Okay. Okay.
So you hardly have stagnant waters in the forest. They are soaked up. And you only have cases of rivers. And even rivers hardly grow malaria because some of them are flowing.
Okay, I wanted to go to a point similar to that. Falciparum, you say, that's the strain, Plasmodium falciparum, accounts for 70% of the malaria.
Yes.
Does this Plasmodium thrive in clean or dirty water?
It does in both.
Both.
Because I could remember when I was younger in primary school days, we were asked to keep a jar of water, clean water somewhere, and see what happens. And eventually we saw things coming up, and that was when we were talking about evolution of life. You know, there's so many theories about evolution of life, but that's
not the topic for today. Okay, so that means even if your water is clean, don't keep it stagnant.
Yes.
Don't leave it in one place for too long.
Yes.
And now to the other individual responsibilities that we must face up to.
Yeah, that's the main issue when it comes to eradicating malaria. And then on the part of the government, yes, the government also has a role to play in this issue, because individuals are not going to construct drainages on the major roads. But if each house has a running drainage, are you getting me? Which goes into the main ones by the roadsides, which is being done by the government, then we have a dry drainage most of the time. So in no time,
or at least a flowing
one. And you will see that in no time, once there is rainfall, in no time everywhere is dry, like it's been done in developed world.
Okay, you've now linked it to government responsibility. Because sometimes some of these drainages, it's the way they are built that's the problem.
Yeah, sure.
Not really that people just toss a lot of stuff into them, but they're flat. They don't incline.
They don't incline
where they're supposed to make the water run.
Sure.
Okay. So let's go on to other responsibilities, whether government responsibilities or individual, that we must be looking at.
Yeah. Well, because when you talk about malaria transmission will thrive in an environment where we have high human population density, high Anopheles mosquito density, and high rate of transmission from human to mosquito and mosquito to human.
Okay.
So if we can interrupt any of these, then we will be fine.
Okay. Now my next question to you would be, how possible would it be to interrupt these things in the face of information that came out some time ago that international donors may not be able to keep up with, funding? There's been a lot of international funding for malaria. What would be the face of malaria? What would be the likely face of malaria in Nigeria if international donation reduces or stops?
Thank you very much. One thing about the international organizations is that anytime they start a program, there is something we call ownership of a program. So when they come around and they start a program which they believe will benefit us here, they want us over time to be able to take over the ownership of the program, for us to be able to sustain the program ourselves and see it as our own, and then go ahead and maintain. So having pumped in quite a lot of money, then we should believe that, well, our government by now should be able to take up the responsibility of taking care of their own citizens.
Okay, we are going to come back and start from there, but let's take a short break right now. We'll take a short break and we'll be back really soon. Just hang in there and be ready to call in with your questions. Join us again.